Welcome back to the Prescription of Travel MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Courtney Downes, and today I am so excited to bring you this interview. My next guest is an incredible person. She's actually my former med school classmate from my UConn days, and so I've had the chance to actually watch her come out of her shell and really just flourish. She's a world traveler, dedicated physician. She's a wife and a mom of three who's showing her whole family the world, one country at a time. On this show, I know I talk a lot about creating the life that you want through travel and rest and adventure and making this work while still having to work and manage life's other priorities. Dr. Weili Gray is another wonderful example of what this can look like for you, okay? She's actively designing her dream life while continuing to thrive in her career in spite of, and I think because of sometimes the obstacles that she's facing. And she's inspiring other women, including myself, to do the same. She's the founder of Dare to Dream Compass, which you'll hear more about. She's also the creator of the Women Doc Scuba Divers Facebook group, which you should absolutely join if you identify as such, amongst so many other things. And in this episode, we're going to dive into her journey, no pun intended, her passions, and all the incredible things she's building. In fact, she's taking a group of women physicians specifically, on this unforgettable journey to one of her favorite continents with a visit to Botswana for a safari and some time in South Africa. It's happening this April. And I promise, if going on safari with what's turning out to be this phenomenal group of women who would welcome you with open arms is on your list, you'll want to stay tuned on how to sign up. So, welcome to the show, Weili. I'm so excited to have you here. I think, your trips and your life and just how you manage to blend everything together so beautifully is just truly aspirational. And I want everyone to know all about you. So, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me here, Courtney. And I love that we're like med school classmates, and now, however many years later, we're on a podcast together. That's so cool. So yeah, I'm Dr. Weili Gray, and I am a sleep physician and a mom of three, married, and I live in Vermont. And I am an employed physician who has also, in the last about 3.5 years ago, started traveling a lot with my family. Like, we didn't even have passports before then. I had let my passport expire, and we started traveling a lot. And I really feel like travel is my favorite way of personal growth and personal transformation. And so recently I founded my company called Dare to Dream Compass, where I bring transformational travel experiences to physicians, high performing individuals. And I am going to be hosting my first retreat in Southern Africa coming actually really soon this year in April, late April of 2026.
And I'm so excited to get into that because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very interested in that, myself included. But why don't you take us back a little bit? How did this version of your life begin? Like, what was the moment you realized that you wanted something different, something more than just, going to work every day and working a 9 to 5? And what happened?
Yeah, such a great question, Courtney. You were there for part of it because I was just like sort of like a wide eye, passionate to have like medical student, right? Like, if we think back to when we wrote our medical school essays, like we were just like this really idealistic young women. And I remember like actually my med this is so funny because shortly after medical school, I actually, my intern year, I had a baby and sort of like residency, and everything was like a blur for about 10 years, maybe even more than that. Like, when I thought back, like when I sort of had what I call maybe like 5 years ago, I had this, now in retrospect, I call like a midlife crisis. I was like, I totally forgot who I am, who I was. And then I thought back to when I applied to medical school, and I remember, like, the essay that I wrote, like, to get into UConn Medical School where we went together was about travel. I wrote about how when I was traveling, because I was a astrophysics major in college, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And then in junior year abroad, I traveled a lot, and it was during my travel I realized it's really cool to, like, chat with strangers. It's really cool to get to know people, keep an open mind and get to know new cultures, get to know people, and just to make a connection really quickly with someone that I don't know. and that totally surprised me because I had buried my head in, like, books, before then, and so I wrote about that in my med school essay. I had this opportunity. It was an accidental opportunity, but I started traveling solo during my junior year abroad. Mostly it was in Europe, but I also went to, like, Turkey. I went to just kinda all over, Europe, and I ended up for one of these trips, I had to hitchhike. There was a place in Norway that I wanted to go to, and it was, like, really north, and this, like, I didn't have money to, like, rent a car or anything. They probably wouldn't rent it to me at my age, and so on the Lonely Planet guidebook, which is what we used back then to travel, it said that and this part, to get to the trail, to hike, in this really northernmost part of this part of Norway, now you have to hitchhike. I'm like, "Oh." So like, I took the public transportation to get to wherever point. I'm like, "Okay, this is now where I hitchhike." So, anyway, it was totally fine, like, the first vehicle stopped for me and, it was totally a great experience.
What year was this?
This was, I was a junior, so like 2002 to the I graduated in 2003, so 2002. You might like the summer after my junior year, like after I study abroad, I did this sort of solo trip across Scandinavia.
Or maybe hitchhiking in Norway was, like, safer than, like, hitchhiking in, the US in 2002. Because 'cause I'm not sure that, I would've been like, maybe this trail isn't for me."
Sure. There's no question about that. I purposely picked, like, a place where it was, like, really chill to, travel solo. In fact, the biggest danger I came across during that trip was seagulls, like, aggressively trying to get my hot dogs. But anyway, it's so funny because I wrote about that and I'm like, hiking the arc. I think that was, like, the title of my medical school essay. I don't like I just told stories about travel and how that helped me decide to blend science and the humanities, and I really felt strongly about that conclusion, and, like, I felt like medicine was a calling. And then, of course, like, you remember, we did the same curriculum in medical school, like, first year is hard, second year is really hard, third year, it's like every year it's like a new learning curve. And then when it came time to match, I had gotten married the October of a fourth year. And then when it came time to match, and I was talking with my husband, who's not medical, but he was like, it's going to affect where he goes. I was like, I don't know why, but like this one choice that we were considering, like, I feel kind of nauseous thinking about it. Maybe that means like I shouldn't go there. And then I'm like, why am I nauseous? And it turned out that, oh, I'm pregnant. So I'm going to be expecting as an intern. And that I would say, Courtney, that was probably where I started deviating from the prescribed path in medicine, because who in their right mind would have a baby during their intern year? Especially, like, I was, like, pretty pregnant. Like, by the time I, like, went into intern year July and then met my new interns, like, I was, like, waddling into the room.
Well, and it's funny you say that, but I feel like that was, like, the same thing that happened to, like, another one of our shared classmates and, like, a few other people along the way. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, like, who in their right mind would have a baby in the intern year, and you're, like, questioning whether you should have a baby, or you're thinking, like, "I'm already in this predicament, what now?" Like, just know that it turns out okay. In the end, it turns out okay.
I will say that sometimes you have to get courage to just, like, meet the circumstances. So that's sort of what happened to me because I didn't choose necessarily to, walk into intern year, like, super pregnant, but then I'm like, "Well, this it is what it is." I've always wanted to have children, and I'm so grateful that I can. I just didn't think I would have it, like, the first part of intern year, and back then, like, now I look back and I'm like, That's not a big deal." But back then, it was, as an intern, like, your goal was to show people that you're willing to work, that you have the work ethic, that you're, like, you're committed to medicine, and it was, like, I felt part of me, even though I made myself walk in the room and as an intern, like, part of me felt like I betrayed, like, what I signed up for. Like, I sort of, like, this was not, so anyway, that was but I will say that that has taught me and gave me the courage from then on to just, like, it's okay to be different. Like, it's okay to not meet that expectation of, being superhuman and being, a rock star, to be honest, I mean, people who maybe I did, like, internship and residency with, I mean, I passed, I showed up to my shifts, and I wasn't always, like, together, but, like, I did it, but I wasn't able to put the same level of attention, like, 100% or 110% into medicine that I did when I was a med student, right? So I think it taught me priorities in life, and I didn't always do it gracefully, but it also taught me that it was okay to, like, deviate from the path, that I'm still, like, human, that I can still contribute. So yeah, that was that was maybe I mean, the story did not end there. I mean, I went through, like, several phases of that. Probably the next time that I felt that way was maybe 5 years into my first job as an attending. We had moved actually to where we are now in Vermont, and I was like, "Wow, I have this dream job, and we're living this dream life." And at that time, I think, I had 3 kids, 3 pretty young kids, and I was like, "Life is going great." And it's because I found this great gig. Like, I sort of put all of my worth into the job that I was able to find. And we moved to this new area, like we sort of like uprooted again, just like we do often in medicine. We uprooted ourselves to this new place and started to grow there. And then there was a bunch of things happening, which like including COVID, but there was like change in administration. There was different things, which are all normal, for employed physicians. But I really then started feeling like, oh no, what happened? Like my dream job, like almost overnight changed. And now it's not my dream job. And now I don't think I'm in a great situation. And I really had to do a lot of soul searching because I was like, I actually wanted to quit medicine at that point. I loved which it's so ironic because I love being a doctor and I love practicing medicine, seeing patients. Nobody loves the administrative part of it. So, but that wasn't like that bad in my job. But I sort of like that sort of changed really quickly, not overnight, but in maybe like a few months or like a 6-month period. And then I felt so discouraged because I put, like, all my hope in this job, and then I realized, like, I almost walked away. I was like, "I think I'm just gonna quit." And not only quit this job, I'm just gonna quit medicine. Like, I'm not gonna be a doctor who's gonna go, like, keep looking for, like, an okay job. Like, like, I might then uproot my family again, and what if, like, overnight that changes in a few years? So I just really didn't like not having that control in my life. And from that sort of low point, that's when the midlife crisis, in retrospect, started. From that low point, that's when I was able to build everything back again. Because 'cause I'm like, "What do I have to lose?" I was gonna walk away anyway.
Yeah, I think that's so relatable, you know? I think many of us in medicine have probably felt that way. I know myself included, feeling like, you know what, I think I'm just going to walk away from medicine altogether for, I think if you stay in medicine long enough, the majority of us are going to have those thoughts. And so, how did you come back from that?
Yeah, and I think the most painful part of those thoughts is this feeling of I have no control. At that time, I had this belief, which is not even true, and it's not even, but I had this belief that like the CEO of my hospital at the time was controlling like my whole destiny in my life. And it was painful because I didn't happen to like who that person was at the time. And like people have no control over that, right? Like you have no control. I mean, maybe you have a little bit control, but maybe a little bit like maybe you could have voted, like some people, some of the physicians in the institution maybe had a little bit of control, but like overall, like we have very little control over that, especially as employed physicians. And that the pain also like continued to I'm like, well, even if I open my own practice, like it's then the insurance are like my payers and I'm still under their control. And so that's why I just felt really, really discouraged and in pain. And like why did I like, I had this, thinking I had forgotten who this person was at the time anyway, but like thinking back to the passionate, idealistic, like driven pre-med and medical student that we were, I'm like, how did we end up like this? Right. And we all joke in medicine, we're like, we got so much more schooling and we have much higher IQs and like academic prowess than the people who are controlling our lives. I mean, I do respect the administrators and what they do because I honestly don't really want to do what they do. But it's sort of like, especially when you're in a situation you don't like, this is what these are the thoughts that come up, that the pain points that come up.
At some point, you remembered who you were, though. You remembered what you stood for, and and then it took you to this next level, like this that you wouldn't have gotten to if you hadn't been able to go through that experience.
Yes. Yes, thank you for that to helping me move to the next level. So, yeah, because I wanted to give up on medicine, I'm like, "Well, I need to find something else to do with my life." Like, I was on I was, like, not even 40, I think, at the time, or maybe I just turned 40. I'm like, "What do I do?" And I realized I'm like, "I don't have any hobbies because I spent all of my life in medicine, all of my most of my 20s and 30s in, like, in training in medicine, and then I had a family, so I'm like, I'm not maybe I could, like, grow vegetables? I don't even know what I could do. I had no other skills. And then there was, like, one thing I knew that I, started to, like, teach myself, which is, like, sort of like, personal finance, like, financial literacy. So I was like, "Well, that's, like, the one thing I know, so maybe I should do that." And I looked into that and, like, honestly, it was more of an escape. Like, it was more of a, like, going away from a pain point rather than, like, this is what really calls me. But anyway, I signed up for this conference, and at the time, like, COVID had just started, so this was a virtual conference, and this conference was, on life planning, and it was, like, sort of like a sector in financial planning where it's like, well, if you wanna know what to do with your money, you need to know what you really wanna do with your life, and that was, like, my first, like, introduction to anything sort of, like, about personal growth, life design, like, intentionality in life. That was, like, my first sort of just happened to be, like, an accidental first introduction, and it was in that conference where I was, like, in this group with all these financial planners that I was completely uncomfortable with in the room. I was almost ashamed to tell them that I'm a doctor because I'm like, "Well, nobody else here is a doctor. What am I doing here?" And and there were questions that we all worked on in that conference, things like, what if tomorrow is your last day, living? Like, what if you learn that you only have 24 hours to live? Like, what would you have regretted about your life? What are the things that you didn't get to do? And it was just this process where we just kept digging deeper and deeper about who are we and why are we here on this earth? And it was so inspirational. I had never done anything like that before, and I wish I did, but I had never done anything like that before in all the schooling and all this training that I had. And as a result of that, after that, it was, like, probably, like, a 5-day virtual conference, I decided that, "Oh, no, I love medicine. What what why I'm not gonna run away. I'm just gonna stay where I am, and I'm gonna start speaking up." And at the time, I was a very quiet person. I wouldn't even be able to do, like, a podcast interview like this. I just would, like, freeze up, and I wouldn't be able to, like, even have med staff in my little hospital, like, I would, like, blush and turn all red if I try to, like, say anything in front of the group. So I just started to learn to use my voice and sort of started just asking for things, contributing, and I ended up sort of now, like, I ended up loving my job because I started to ask for the things that are really important to me and ask for ways to help me succeed in my role and started contributing, and yeah, so that's sort of like it was such a big difference, and maybe over the course of a few years, I sort of then was like, "Oh, wow, I can't believe I actually wanted to leave medicine because 'cause I'm really happy." And then as my kids got older, maybe like a couple 2 or 3 years into that, this was about maybe 3 years ago, so maybe 2 years into that, is when I also started doing a lot of traveling. Before that, my father was ill with cancer, and I just didn't wanna be away from him. And so that was like the latest inspiration was, seeing my father, go from someone who was like super functional, working full time, and then all of a sudden he got stage 4 colorectal cancer and, in his life just kind of like his health just kind of faded, in a matter of 4.5 years. And then he passed away. And my kids and I were there until the very end of his life. And to see someone who was like so vibrant and like alive all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but even 4.5 years felt like it was like a blink of an eye. It gave me the urgency to just do things that I think, like, I wanna do, like, like a bucket list life, and that doesn't have to be just about travel. I think travel was one of them, but I think I was just like, "I don't have time, I'm just gonna tell people what I think because I don't have time to beat around the bush. I don't have time to, like, stay quiet and just, like, resentful of what's happening right now," like, I need to know, like, by the end of today or this week that I did what I could to influence, whatever is happening that I don't think is right or that I think could be better. So I think I just became like a different person, and travel was part of that.
And part of you becoming a different person and learning to ask for things was you asking for time off to be able to travel.
Or even just using the time off. I think, like, at my institution, most physicians are just, and this is probably true all over, most physicians are just not using all the PTO that they have, because we feel guilty.
Yep. I can definitely relate to so many of those things. I feel like we have so many things in common, fortunately and unfortunately. But yeah, I also agree that like physicians aren't using their time off. They're working. Like I talk to docs all the time. It's if you stay within the little bubble that we're in, the travel bubble, you wouldn't even believe that the people outside of the travel bubble are not traveling. And we take multiple trips a year, and then you'll meet someone who hasn't taken a vacation in like several years, and it's like, how is that even possible? And when I say vacation, it doesn't mean that you have to take some grand, extravagant trip, to Bora Bora or, to the Maldives or, you know, but take some time for yourself. And even if it's like a staycation or take some time to rest instead of just working, working, working because you've got a private practice to run and there's no one else to pick up the slack or, you're an employed physician and there's just no one else to cover those call shifts and you're just not taking the time.
I totally agree with that, and I think it's just about pulling away, and there is something so magical about it, and I totally agree with you, Courtney, that it doesn't have to be Bora Bora, although that would be amazing, and we should go there. But it doesn't have to be. There's just something about pulling away. I think it's a thing that we need to build into our annual calendar, quarterly annual calendars, because human nature, we tend to get stuck. Like if we just sit, like, where I'm sitting right now, if I'm just sitting here for a whole entire week, I'm just going to look at the window here. I'm going to look at the screen, and I'm going to have this very limited perspective. And even if I do my best to like imagine, oh, yeah, there's a world out there, there's forests and there's like streams, but it's very hard to pull away from like the immediate thing that we're in. And then for physicians, that means we have all sorts of problems, right? Insurance problems, patient problem, like difficult patients, difficult situations at work. There's always going to be problems, right? That's human. That's just like being human and being in society. Um, and if we just force ourselves to extricate, and whether it's going 2 hours away to go hiking or to Bora Bora, and I do believe that the farther we go, the more powerful and potent this effect is, but it gets us unstuck. Like, it's, like, inevitable. It's a state change, and it's, like, physically changing our state, but it also mentally and emotionally and psychologically changes our state.
So what are some of the places that you've stepped away to change change your state?
Almost every like, I'm about to go on vacation now. Like, almost before every vacation.
So where have you not been is probably a better question.
Where have not been? So many places. There's so many places that are on my list. I think before every trip I go on, I'm always like, "Oh, no, there's so much to do." Like, there's this huge list, this huge checklist. I gotta close these charts. I gotta go, like, read these sleep studies. There's always gonna be something. And then my husband already, like, is used to me at this point, but, like, if he wasn't, he would be laughing at me the whole time because I'll be like, "Oh, I think I can do, like, can we get Wi-Fi on the plane? Okay, I think I can, like, log in and just, like, check a few more emails and reply to them." It's very hard for me to let go, and it's usually, like, a couple days into the vacation, even if things are not 100% settled. Because like, even I'm going to work every day, like, nothing is ever completely settled, there's always more. So, like, eventually when I, like, just forget and let myself to disconnect a little bit, I'm just so happy. I mean, I don't even think it has to do with the place, but some of the places that really stand out in my mind as far as, like, escaping. Speaking of Bora Bora, I have not been to Bora Bora, but French Polynesia, my husband and I did a couples trip there, and we went to this island called Fakarava, and it was for my diving, but it was like you felt like there was this little atoll, like, dead coral, like, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. There's really nothing else. Like, they barely even have food. I mean, they have enough food, but it was just so amazing to just be so far away from, like, regular civilization. But it's just like Australia is another place that stands to mind because it's so far away and it's so hard to get to, and when you get there, it's so big.
Your stories about your Australia trip are probably some of my favorite.
Oh,
You driving the RV.
yeah.
I think about this anytime we start planning a trip and my sister's like, "Oh, you should get an RV and drive it," and she's talking about, like, driving 2 hours to, like, Zion in Utah, and I'm like, "Absolutely not," and then I think about you in Australia, deciding that I'm just gonna drive on the opposite side of the street that I normally drive on in this RV that I've never driven before, and, while I'm here in Australia, with my kids, like, no big deal.
You know what though? It's that wanderlust and like needing like there's logistics that need to be done to like meet this wanderlust that really changes us. Because I mean I didn't really want to sign up to drive this RV in Australia, but after I did, 'cause I kind of had to like no one else was gonna drive in my group, and I wanted to go see the Northern Territories, the outback. When I came home, my husband has this humongous pickup truck. And I've always been afraid to drive it. So when I came home, like, guess what I did in Australia? I drove this humongous RV. It was way bigger than your pickup truck. Now I can drive your pickup truck.
I love it. So, what are some of the other trips that you've taken that bring back really good memories for you?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I don't wanna rehash them all because I'm like, I so she's on Facebook and we're Facebook friends, so I follow along to all of her trips, and every time she's somewhere, I'm like, "Oh, I wish I could be there," and she's, we started the whole scuba diving thing together, and one of us continued, one of us did not, and one of us continued and did it with great passion and has been to multiple places and, seen penguins in places I didn't even know penguins existed, so I don't wanna steal your thunder by telling them about all of your travels, but I know you've taken some magnificent trips, and I just want people to know all about them.
I think that there are magnificent places on every continent, all over the world. I have not yet been to Antarctica. That's my like, remaining continent, and I cannot wait to get there. It's just really expensive. So we have to figure out a way to get there. We'll have to do some magic with the points or something. But I think some of the most magnificent places, I'm a sucker for like off the beaten path, like places where I land and I, look around and I'm like, there's very few people on earth that like that will travel here. Like I'm such a sucker for places like that. I've taken several trips to Africa, but like our first trip to Africa, it was our family of five. I somehow convinced my husband. I caught him at a weak moment, and he decided that he was going to go. And we drove around Namibia, and then we drove around parts of South Africa, and that was so cool. And we spent quite a bit of time in each country, and just like some of the places we drove in Namibia, it's like, you don't see anybody there, and every once in a while, you'll pass by, like, a local in on, like, a horse carriage would pass by. I'm like, am I" I'm like, "This is, like, the equivalent of, like, the Amish that I see in Vermont," but someone will, like, pass by and they'll wave at you, and then all of a sudden, you're in Africa because 'cause you'll see, like, a zebra, like, it's in the middle of, like, the desert, and so, yeah, just places, and then Heron Island in Australia is another place where I'm just like, this is so cool. Like you take a boat ride about 2 hours in the middle of the Great Barrier Reef, and there's like birds. You just feel like you're in this little dot, like you're sleeping and staying in this little dot in the middle of the ocean. And it was just then we got to and slow travel. I also like, we got to spend 4 days there, which is just so relaxing. And so like watching the stars and seeing the birds fly and just, like, sharing memories with my kids and snorkeling and diving. I did go diving and saw mantas there.
So you are like the master of traveling from a remote place to other remote places, and you're doing this with your children as well. So you mentioned that you're taking months off at a time. So how does that work with your kids? Because they're school-aged kids, right?
Yeah. So, to be clear, where I wish, and that will, if the opportunity ever came, to take, like, longer trips. But, yeah, we usually travel, like, 2 to 3 weeks at a time. The Africa one was really special where it was, like, 4 weeks, and that's pretty unusual that we got that long. So, trying to do some of this in the summer definitely helps. We live in rural Vermont, and my husband and I made the decision a while ago, like, for my kids to be homeschooled. So they're like, it's not completely homeschooled. It's like a mixture of homeschooled for my oldest child who's now in high school. He's sort of in like a full time online academy. And so there is a little bit more flexibility, but to be honest, they don't really want to be doing their schoolwork because again, we're not full-time travelers. If we were, that would be like the World School Movement, which also sounds amazing. But, when they're traveling, they don't really want to do all their schoolwork. So they usually allow us like a week. So let's say like coming up right now, like they have about a week of technically it's exam week, but they'll just finish their exams early and then we'll just go. And then they're allowed for this second week that we're going to be gone, they're just going to be like asking for extensions. They'll make up all the classes and the work when they come back. So I think I've had, other colleagues and other people, like no other people with kids who are just in regular school. And I think it is important to sort of sell it to the school, like explain to them that this is just as big of a part of the kids' education for their whole growth than anything else. And I think it depends on the school district, but a lot of schools will be really receptive, especially if the kids, like my oldest child, when he travels, he'll like share his photo. Like, I mean, he didn't even volunteer. Like they asked him to, and somehow maybe he shares some of them in his presentations. And now they're like after every trip, they're like, can you share this with the class? So I think it expands like everybody's horizon.
I know I've seen some of the things, the products of your kids being able to travel and be a part of these adventures, and one of your sons actually is a very good photographer, and I've seen some of his photos from the safari that you went on, and I just feel like those are experiences that you're not going to replicate, sitting in a classroom, and it's not something that we all have access to, but if you do have the ability to show your kids the world and for them to see the world through a different set of eyes that's, traveled to many places and met many people and had all of these experiences. It's such a gift.
And this is where perspective also comes in. So when we were in Ecuador, we met this family and they were also teenagers I think from the UK. And we were at this Cloud Forest Lodge, and like I was having a conversation with the guy and the father of the family, and he was just like, "Yeah, we just tell the teachers. Like, I mean, they hate it. I mean, sometimes they're supportive, other times they're not, but they're just like, this is our value in our family. So we're just, like maybe the kids might even like, miss a quiz or so. This might be a little bit like shocking to people who listen to this, but I'm like, hey, if my kid is in third grade and, she misses a quiz, like it's not the end of the world. It's okay. It's just about your values. Like, so I don't stress too much. Like, okay, I'm making my kids take their exams a little bit early so we have time to travel. Maybe they're gonna not do as well on this exam, but that's not even necessarily true. But even if they don't, we have limited time with our kids as they're growing up, and there is value in sort of influencing what they see as the world and expanding their horizons.
For sure. And when you're traveling with a family of 5 and when you mentioned going further and further away, when you're traveling longer distances, those costs can sort of add up. So, I know we're big into the points game. Do you do a lot of your travel with points, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, so the way I think about points is I think of them as like my geographic arbitrage tool. So what that would mean is I think it's psychological. Like this is not really math, although the math is probably not bad. With the way we travel, so I have a soft spot in my heart for like boutique hotels or like eco lodges. I mean, none of these are like almost by definition, I like them because they're not corporate, right? I like them because they're not a Marriott or a Hilton or a Hyatt. Although I do stay at those, like, usually when we're transiting through a city, I do like those perks. I like the Amex Fine Hotels, and Resorts program, like, so don't get me wrong, but the things that really sort of, like, gnaw at my heart are those really authentic local experiences, and really, a lot of them are not that expensive. I mean, Africa is a little different, but, like, some of these places that, we stay at, that like, and we were just in Sri Lanka, and I stayed at this basically it was like a homestay, and it was this person's house. He also was a rice farmer, but he's a guide that he takes people to the rainforest and like shows you birds and, other cool things in the rainforest. Like his wife cooks for us 3 meals. I mean, it was really amazing. Such amazing hospitality and so authentic. And like, there's no way I would do that on points, right? But what I do is I use the points to fly to Sri Lanka for my family of 5. And then once I'm there, it's pretty cheap anyway. So, you know how the Amex Business Platinum cards now have $300 credit biannually if you use the Fine Hotels program? So I was able to book 2 rooms in the Shangri-La in Colombo in Sri Lanka, and I couldn't even use the $300. because it was only $255 per room. But I'm like, "Well, this credit's gonna expire, so I'm just gonna use it up here," because it was in November, and so I got 2 rooms for us. You get late checkout, early check-in if you get there early, and then you get 100, I think it was 120, no, yeah, there was like 150 USD. Like, you get a little bit of a different perk with each hotel, and they'll tell you when you book, but I think it ended up being like 150 USD at the spa, and there was no way I could use that much money at the spa, because, the massages were not like the $400 spas at the Four Seasons in, like, Maui. It was just really, in general, affordable. It was a beautiful hotel.
I just saw the Shangri-La Hotel in Paris as I was trying to find somewhere to stay this summer, and it was probably like 20 times that for one night.
That's the geographic arbitrage, because if you use the points to fly somewhere and that country is fairly inexpensive, even for like a five-star hotel. I mean, this was even true in Japan. Like, we flew points to Japan, and we got there. I'm like, this is not more expensive to travel than in the domestic US. If I flew to like LA, or Las Vegas is a pretty price friendly city, but like most other, like New York City for sure, like any of these cities, like it would be way more expensive. But since I use points in my mind, to like get to like Japan or Sri Lanka, being able to stay at a five-star hotel, then going and then with like Amex, find hotels, credits, and then going to like the eco lodges. That's how I justify the way to like spend points in my mind.
And what's your take on actually getting there? Are you I'm only flying business class, or are you like, I just need to figure out how to get there and economy is perfectly fine?
So I'll use 2025 as an example. It was the first time I flew Q Suites, so it was amazing. It was just one way. I found like a Saver Q Suites fare, and I think there was like a 30% transfer with Amex or Chase to Qatar. But usually, if I fly as a family of five, so this was just my son and I. So like my oldest son and I, when we came back from Africa, and it was like had to be like after like August wouldn't work, so we're flying like it's in September. So when like I'm an opportunist, so there is a chance to do something amazing like Q Suites or Etihad first class apartments, which I did with another child of mine, as like because it was like his bucket list dream ever. I will relish in those experiences, but I don't let myself get too comfortable, because I'm like, with the amount of travel that we're doing, it's mostly economy. So after like the first time my kids flew business class, this was 2 years ago. We did Tap Portugal when we did our trip to Madeira. And like it was beautiful. They loved it. Like they love like, lay flat. It was their first time. And it was my first time flying business class. So we all loved it. And they're like, "Can we do this like for every trip?" I'm like, "No, sorry. I don't have the points to do for every trip." Not the amount of travel that we do. Maybe if we do like once or twice a year, maybe.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely hard to keep up with, especially if you're not earning points. I think when you first get into the game, there's massive opportunities for earning points, and I'm sure that continues, but I think it does kind of taper at a point until they start releasing more card offers and.
I don't know if that's happened to you yet, Courtney, but I landed in Amex jail, and so I'm like, "No."
Mhm. I think that's what I was thinking about. I said that because I know last year MX had a bunch of, like, no lifetime limit offers that were available, and I was like, had multiple cards. I'm like, "I'm not sure how I'm gonna meet the sub," and then you realize that you have no problems meeting the spend on these cards, um, and wishing that I got more because that dried up pretty quickly, and now I'm sitting there, like, wishing that they would just give me a call or do one of those surveys or whatever it is that takes to get Amex interested in you again so that way you can get out of pop-up jail. So, yeah, currently in Amex pop-up jail and trying to figure out what my next step is so that way I can start earning some more.
You eventually would get out of it. I did eventually get out of it. I definitely was more aggressive when I started with, like, applying, and honestly, after a while, it's just a lot to keep track of, and I try to just be simple.
Yeah, it's definitely simplified things this year, and, like, I have a few cards that I'm planning on canceling over the next few months because I think this it was around this time last year that I was, like, really just racking up all these cards, and I'm like, I don't wanna pay the annual fee this year, so I think we're moving on to something else, so what card's in your wallet with you doing all of this international travel?
Oh my goodness, I I got so fed up because every time I needed to even just go get gas, I would take out, like, this stash of, like, 20 cards, because I used to just put some of it away, and then I would go somewhere, I'm like, "Oh, I think this card had a coupon," and then I'm like, "No, I just want all of my cards." So then I finally went on Amazon and I bought one of those, like, holds 24 plus credit card like organizers. I don't know why I didn't do it like earlier. My life has been better ever since. So I like, like the major ecosystems like Amex and Chase, Capital One, Atmos. Those are my go-to cards. Not well, I use them like at different times and I probably should try to streamline some of it. But I have not gotten into like City or, any like those other all or Built. I haven't really gotten to those. I don't have all the ecosystems. I'm fairly like conservative and like because I don't jump at each one just because I can't keep up with it. And so when I learned that Mesa like kind of went under, I'm like, well, I guess I didn't miss anything there because I just didn't have time to jump on it. Yeah.
I think I had the same sentiment. It was one that I was eyeing from the sidelines, and I had a lot of FOMO as I was watching everyone, putting all these like huge expenses on on this, Mesa card, and it just wasn't part of my strategy at the time. And so I was like, you know what? It's probably another thing I'm just gonna let go. And I'm glad I did, but there are a lot of times when the Chase Freedom Flex card, when they had that 6 times back offer, like I missed that. And I had a lot of regret about that one.
And do you do the gift card 5x thing? I have not crossed that threshold.
I used to do a lot more gift cards. I do it a little bit less because I've been trying not to shop on Amazon as much, but I used to use it a lot because I could just load them up right into Amazon. But like now I have a couple cards that are like sitting in a bin somewhere and I know I need to use them, but I'm like, okay, no more gift cards until I know that I can, actually use them. It's a lot to keep up with, and I think yeah, the longer I'm in the game, I'm just like I'll go for the big things, and I'll do some like arbitrary things like, driving DoorDash for, American airline miles.
I saw that story.
Things here and there, but for the most part, like, I try to keep it simple. Simple wins, especially when you get to the end of the year, and I know, like, we've got running, like, chats where we're all trying to figure out how to use, the Fine Hotel Resorts credit for different Amex cards. I'm actually sitting on one right now that I'm trying to figure out because I need to cancel my card in, like, 2 days because yeah. So, I'm like, I need to book something, like, tonight. So, we'll see how that goes.
You live in Vegas, so you're so
I know. I have a couple of stays already booked, but the problem is, like, not knowing what the rest of my year looks like. So, I know I have a retreat that I'm going to Morocco in a few months, and then potentially I'm supposed to be going to Mexico soon, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. And then I'm, like, sitting on, trying to figure out if I'm gonna end up in Botswana with you on this retreat that you're gonna tell us all about, and so, just there are all these moving pieces, and you only have so many weekends in a month that you can take off, so I'm like, "Do I book, like, a Fine Hotels Resort stay, another one, because we have one booked in February?" Like, so I'm gonna figure out how to use it. Someone's gonna be staying at a hotel, even if it's, like, my mom and my sister. I'm like, "Hey, book the hotel, go and, get yourself some dinner and, sleep in." But, yeah, trying to figure out how to use all those credits can be a little time consuming, and sometimes it's not necessarily worth it.
yeah. I only use the big ones. I let go of my ink, like, the $20 Instacart because it was like the death of me. Like I tried it a couple of times and I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah, I'll use it, like, if we're traveling somewhere and, like, we're at the hotel and I know I want to get like, I need something from the store and I don't wanna go out and get it, then I'll use it. But if I'm not, like, looking to use it, I don't go out of my way to, like, use that $20 or $10 or whatever it is now that, is cumbersome to use. So tell me about your upcoming trip to Botswana because I know I'm super excited about it. It's something that you talked about before, and I know of a couple of friends that are already going, and I've been getting text messages saying, "Hey, you should come." I started reading this blog post about someone who went on a safari in Botswana, and it was talking about having to go to the bathroom at night and getting up, and if you open the door and you see yellow eyes, you don't go out, and if you see, like, green eyes, it's okay, and making sure that you go out with an escort, and I think about, like, how often I get up in the middle of the night to go pee, and now I have to, like, worry that I won't be able to pee because I'm in the middle of an unfenced lodge in Botswana.
So funny. I love that. You know what? We all have our like little travel hangups. For me, similarly, so not about like having to walk across wildlife to go to the bathroom because I also get up in the middle of the night to pee. For me, it's just about like cleanliness of the bathrooms. Like I mean, which is not a problem in these like amazing safari lodges, but just in general, I'm like that would be a deal breaker. I'm just gonna hold my pee until like my bladder explodes. So like we all have these little things. Like everyone's, it's like a little different.
So you thought about that in planning this trip then?
I love that. I love that you shared your like, little idiosyncrasy and fear. Okay, so I was in Southern Africa in the same area, Botswana, in this past August and September, and I was just so inspired by the time that the experiences I had there. And what happened was, I was telling you about the Q Suites flight that I had. So we flew back Johannesburg to Boston. It's like two legs, right? So it's so beautiful when you're at Q Suites. I'm like, can I be like three or four legs? We flew Johannesburg to Doha and then Doha to Boston. And on this flight, I just like I felt like I was on cloud nine with the time that we had in Africa. And I was literally on cloud 9, like, in this, Q Suites, and that was when I was like, when it just like, these thoughts and this, like, kinda quiet wish just came to me that, wouldn't it be amazing to, bring other people to Africa? People who maybe it's, like, on their list and they'll do it someday, but to bring them to it, like, next year, like, as soon as possible. And I just started, like, writing, like, I had my laptop with me, and I started, like, kinda creating this idea of this retreat and what, like, Africa, the experience that I had meant to me, and that's how I created this journey of becoming retreats, and it will be in, the Tuli block in Botswana. It's not the easiest place to get to, which is why part of our retreat would start in Johannesburg, and my idea is, like, this is a beginner-friendly retreat, like, even people who've never been to Africa, maybe people who don't even travel that much internationally, all they need to do is get themselves to Johannesburg, and from there, like, the retreat will be guided the whole time, like, I will be with them, and so it will be an adventure, though, because part of what I love about traveling and I've learned to sort of, like, just lean into it and embrace it. There's always gonna be fear, like, in fact, I've learned to love the like, I don't even call it anxiety, but some people it could interpret it as, like, I just feel anxious about this, like, unknown, going into the unknown, and that is where the magic happens, is, like, when we lean into the unknown when we go. So, like, they fly into Johannesburg, and then we'll travel as a group to, start, like, the adventure to get to the Tuli block in Botswana, and it'll involve, like, a domestic flight, and then it'll be overland travel and a border crossing. Like, how many people have done, border crossing in Africa before? Maybe we've done, like, border crossing into Canada or maybe Mexico, right? But how cool is that? That's gonna be a really cool experience. And then going to this camp, these, safari camps, and we're gonna split our time in 2 of them. By the way, their bathrooms are en suite, so you don't have to worry about I have stayed at a camp this past year where I did have to shine my light, and there I mean, even I probably could have held my pee if I needed to, but I didn't. I was fine. I was able to go to the bathroom, and I didn't see a lot of eyes. Uh, but these safari camps are really nice. They have the bathroom en suite, but they are unfenced, and I think that's part of the magic of it is just feeling the raw wilderness. And this area of Botswana is just it's beautiful. It is a very ancient land, and then I just like where else in the world besides Botswana and places in Africa where you will be next to and maybe walking most likely just being an open air vehicle next to elephants and giraffes and leopards and lions. It's just there is like no other experience like it. And even if you have like I'll talk to some of my friends and they're like, "Well, yeah, I did like a safari, like 20 years ago and it was amazing." It is one of those things that I think just keeps, like, tugging our hearts, and I after last year was the first time I went to Africa, or 2 years ago, and, like, after I got there, like, soon after I got there, I'm like, "I have to come back here every year." I just like, it was just, like, a thing that, sort of, like, my heart spoke, and it is just such a magical place. There's just no other place in the world like this part of the world, and I think in addition to the amazing experiences and the sights that we'll see there's gonna be like I said, I am such a big believer that the magic of personal growth and transformation can happen so quickly and, like, easily when we're traveling because we get to shed the mask, the sort of the roles, the ideas that we have when we're at home. We are then able to really dig deep in ourselves, and there's something about just being away that helps us get to that and to our inner self, and then that's where the name journey of becoming, and then after that, it's manifesting that, like, during the retreat, but then also, like, manifesting it in our life when we return home, and I am so excited about the group that's already going. It's a group of amazing women. And this current retreat is for women physicians. When I do future retreats, I may, open it up to like family or spouses, or, we may do something different in the future. But this one is just like, this is gonna be so special because it'll be women physicians, and we are going to return home, knowing ourselves better, kind of being so comfortable with who we are, and we are going to be more courageous. And I'm just like so excited to be able to facilitate this experience for people who are going to be in the retreat.
Oh, I'm excited for you. I think you have a way of building community and bringing people together that's just unmatched, and also of enabling people to to do things and to feel empowered. And so I'm excited for everyone who's going. We'll see exactly what that means for me, I guess, over the next couple of days. As well. It's certainly something I would love to take part in. It's just obviously trying to figure out the logistics. And so we were having this conversation the other day about me not going, and Weili said to me, "Take your own advice." And so it's been sitting in my brain since that time. Take your own advice. And I realized there are not a lot of things that are holding me back. I always worry about leaving my kids for long periods of time, and just going by myself, and doing these trips. And I already have like a couple that are lined up for the year. So I'm just like, but then I have a very supportive husband, and my mom and my sister here, and they, my kids are comfortable with them and they love being around them. And I feel like a lot of times when I'm gone, they don't even notice that I'm gone. So I think it's just, getting over that hurdle, and again, following my own advice and saying, when else are you going to have a chance to like go and, be on safari with like such an extraordinary group of people? Maybe I'll be following my own advice. Maybe you who's listening will follow that advice as well. If so, reach out to me. I think Whaley will have an offer for you if you do decide that you want to go on the trip. And yeah, I guess we'll see where that goes. Did you give us the dates already for it?
So, yes, so the dates of the retreat, it's going to start in Johannesburg on April 24th. And so you would be, leaving home before then because you have got to get to Johannesburg then. And then we would be leaving so you can leave on May 2nd, but I've actually extended the retreat by an extra day, but we'll still be in Johannesburg then. So you can leave a little bit early if you need to, but I've extended to May 3rd. So it was going to be an 8-night retreat. It's gonna actually be 9 nights, but it'll be flexible if someone had to, like, leave early, and it'll be in and out of Johannesburg because 'cause we'll be traveling to and from the safari where the safari lodges are, as a group.
Okay, perfect. Well, I am looking forward to that. I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes. That way people will have access to that. And where do they find out more about you? How can they reach out to you if they're interested?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, daretodreamcompass.com, and all the retreat information is there. And when this podcast comes out, we're going to do a special offer for the listeners of this podcast. So you can use the keyword RX travel, prescription travel, RX travel, and put that in the promo code, and you'll get a special offer. And if you want to just chat with me, I am on Facebook and Instagram. If you look up my name, Weili Gray, you'll be able to find me. I think you have to friend me on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm at Dream Physician, but if you search for my name, it'll show up.
Yes, and certainly reach out to Whaley if you have any questions about the retreat or just how you can live a bigger life, because she's such a friend and always like such a supporter of physicians doing big things. I think a lot of us have such big dreams, and I myself noticed that we struggle to bring those dreams to life. And she's such a source of inspiration, but she's also, again, she's a master enabler, enabling you to do great things though. She's that girl. Like, if someone to encourage you, to motivate you to think outside the box and to dream bigger and to make it a reality, she's the one you want in your corner. So, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad that I could share this with our community, and I hope to see many of you on this trip that Whaley's put together.
Thank you so much. And Courtney, I just say, like, I'm so proud of you, and I just love that you built this podcast and this community, and I just love seeing you blossom, and I'm like, I can't wait to keep watching.
We've come a long way since UConn met, huh? All right, guys. Thanks for listening. See you next time.